Yo, what's up guys? There'll be a lot of mods here, so check the timestamps below to navigate through the chapters easier, and also read the description to the video to get the links for the mentioned mods. Right? Let's do it. First off, classes. If you finished the game once or twice and got a bit bored, then you should go to the Steam Workshop and simply type class into the search bar. These are by far the most popular and straightforward mods out there. You sub to new classes and get new skills and spells to play with. And because Divinity has a classless system, you can mix those new skills with the ones you used in the vanilla version of the game. So more classes equals more variety. But of course, keep in mind that balance-wise, some classes are reasonable, while others are adding straight-up broken stuff, so use your own judgment when it comes to those things. Here are my personal favorites. First off, class overhauls by Autumnblade. They add new skills to your standard archetypes like Huntsman, Necromancy, Scoundrel, etc., or add straight-up new archetypes like Spectre, a scythe-wielding class which specializes in piercing damage. Oh, by the way, elemental skills like Pyro, Aero, Geo, and Hydro will have access to fully converted elemental melee weapons. They scale with intelligence and can be used with warfare skills to do elemental damage. For example, Pyromancy adds one-handed flame blades. You equip those and use, let's say, a whirlwind skill to do fire damage around you. So now you can finally be a battle mage you always wanted to be. Secondly, do you remember this? Or this? Or maybe this? If you want to do the same, then just sub to NPC Spell Unlocker by Bowshotter. This mod adds a vendor who sells skills used by NPCs, stuff like Cursed Fireball, Summon Skelly Troll, Mass Shackles of Pain, Void Glide, Rain of Fire, and much more. Thirdly, guns. Sub to Musketeer class by MDZ Kimchi. With this mod, you'll get access to 3 types of firearms and a bunch of new skills related to lead spreading. Another cool class is Thor God of Thunder by DoctorBeetus. It has a lot of new lightning skills and a new debuff and buff mechanic connected to those skills. It also grants you a weapon Stormbreaker and a full set of armor which level up with you. There is also Luminare by Focus. It adds a new combat school with its own unique light damage type, light resistance, and very beautiful visuals. And finally, classes like Blacksmith, Succubus, Vampire, and others made by Helene, and classes like Astronomer, Chronomancer, Berserker, and others made by Hephaestus. Although most of these haven't been updated for a while, they're still very fun to play with. Oh, there is a personal recommendation from the modders, and it's to activate only 1 or 2 modded classes from different people at a time. Otherwise, you won't experience each class properly, and balance will be all over the place. Next up, cosmetics. This is by far the most asked question when it comes to mods. First of all, sub to Majora's Character Creation Plus, made by Bellacore, Murderbot, and Majora's. Most of the unique appearances you've seen in my videos were added thanks to this mod. You'll have a big variety of different facial attributes and other accessories for all playable races. Just keep in mind that the mod can be updated by the creators, and some options will be replaced as a result. Or you may sub to the alternative mod, which is called Character Creation Unlocked by Strongpass. It gives you access to facial features which belong to different NPCs like Radika, Lohar, Riker, Melody, Lich Zhash, and so on. Keep in mind that it isn't compatible with other mods which add new faces. Another character creation mod is More Character Colors by Lady Cassandra. The mod is pretty straightforward. It allows you to paint the main character in the style of your favorite Dark Souls characters. This mod is compatible with 2 previously mentioned mods. Now let's talk about the in-game cosmetics. Do you remember that one giant dragon mask you had on your character and thinking, damn, it would be cool to wear it all the time, but stats were kinda garbage and you had to throw it away? If yes, then Vanity, made by Grudgebringer, will help you with that problem. What it does is that it allows you to get a special ring which can sort of remember your current look. That ring will be able to apply that previous look to your new armor. It works quite well with other mods which add new in-game cosmetics. Speaking of which, Majora's Fashion Sins by Majora's, Laughing Leader, and Bellacore will add a chest with a big amount of cosmetics from different games. For example, human males will be able to equip Arthas' armor in his Paladin or Lich King form, or human females can equip the gear of a favorite fictional character of the Italian Parliament. In order to apply those accessories to your current gear, you may use Vanity, mentioned earlier. Just keep in mind that those cosmetics are race and gender locked, and so you won't be able to equip, let's say, Jack of Blades armor on a lizard character. Or, as an alternative, you may use Equipment Pack by RoboGodzilla. It adds chests with a huge amount of appearance items, which you normally see on NPCs. Again, use Vanity mod to apply those visuals to your equipped items. You may also sub to Rendell's NPC armors and weapons by Rendell. It adds a magic lamp, which allows you to apply visuals from certain NPCs to your armor and weapons. For example, you can visually change your current armor into Gareth's or Melody's variants without touching stats and characteristics. The list of cosmetics isn't big, and it's gender/race locked, but still fun to use. If you want to repaint your equipment, then get Dial Ready by Luxen. With it, you can add different colors to your gear, or even create your own color scheme. Next, quality of life mods. Firstly, sub to Improved Hotbar by Pip. Basically, it allows you to customize your hotbar. For example, you press this plus icon to increase the amount of shown skill bars, which is pretty sick. Or you can save and then load a preset for your future runs. Secondly, Superior Carry Weight Increase by Fjaronsigr. If you're tired of constantly being encumbered and running to vendors to sell your stuff, or maybe moving items between your characters is draining too much time, then this mod will help you, as it increases the weight limit of your inventory to 1000 kilos or pounds. Just keep in mind that there can be a minor UI bug which doesn't show your weight limit correctly. Here it shows 100 when there should be 1000, but this doesn't affect anything. Thirdly, more waypoint locations by Lady Cassandra. It's pretty straightforward, as it adds extra waypoints throughout the game. For example, you can now waypoint to lone wolves at the sawmill or to stranded dwarf merchants in Act 2. Good mod, saves a lot of time. Another good quality of life mod is Let There Be Tooltips by Fire and Dew. What it does is that it shows missing tooltips for stuff like crates, barrels, etc. So basically now you will know for sure if you can interact with specific objects or not. Another mod from Fire and Dew is called Recipe Unlocker. It's pretty self-explanatory. This unlocker gives you most of the recipes like potions, arrows, runes, etc. when you start a new game or load a save file. If you have garbage eyesight like me, then you might get better item borders by Dirbob from Nexus Mods. As you can see, it makes item rarity colors more apparent. But if it still seems difficult to see the difference, then there's a colorblind version you can seize from the website. If you want to test some build ideas very quickly, then you can get the Cheat Commander by Muffiny. You'll get the special book in your inventory to summon an NPC who gives you XP, levels, skill books, gold, attributes, full set of equipment for every archetype like Finesse, Strength, and Intelligence. On top of that, you can just trade with him to get a specific gear you want, or even tell him to restock his supplies immediately. Next, givebacks. As you probably know, there is an in-game option to turn on specific mods called givebacks. Here are my personal favorite ones. Source Meditation to restore Source of Combat when you press on a bedroll. Animal Empathy to talk to animals. Hagglers if I have more than one character. Crafter's Kit to add a few more recipes. Divine Talents to get more options. Enhanced Spirit Vision for quality of life. Also for Joy Magic Mirror if I want to experiment a bit in Act 1. By the way, it can also save your playthrough if you think you bricked your builds and you don't want to restart the game again. Endless Runner to run a round of combat much faster, and Sorcerer's Sundries to level up your equipment for a hefty price. Everything else I didn't find that much useful. Oh, by the way, I wouldn't recommend using an improved organization giveback. It's a huge mess, so don't do it or you'll regret this. Speaking of the Sorcerer's Sundries giveback, that levels up your gear. It will not work in custom uniques from other mods and on a couple of vanilla ones. To deal with it, you gotta get Sorcerer's Sundries fixed by Laughing Leader. As you probably noticed, some givebacks either not really good or straight up broken when you add something else on top of them. And so you should know that nearly every giveback you saw on the screen is a copy of mods originally created by modders on Steam and Nexus. Pause it for the clarification. Some original mods have more options and better compatibility. And so you might consider subbing to those mods instead of using givebacks. But you do you. Now let's talk about other cool mods. First off, one of my favorite mods is Enemy Randomization by Bardbark. Basically, when any non-summon or non-player related character, like an enemy or a neutral NPC, enters the combat, they get a random permanent buff. For example, they might get teleporter status, which gives teleportation immunity and teleportation spell itself. You should know that NPCs use those new skills quite well, even if they didn't have them at the beginning. But that's not the end of it. On top of having basic buffs mentioned earlier, every NPC has a 1 in 8 chance to become a champion. Those guys will have permanent auras, which benefit their teammates and hurt your party. For example, the Champion of Persistence is immune to knockdown, can cast defensive abilities, and has a permanent Guardian Angel aura to protect their teammates. Or, for example, the Champion of Death can summon bloated corpses and resurrect their teammates. As you can imagine, those statuses can really spice up all fights in the game, especially during boss encounters, because even guys like Alexander or Mortis can get everything mentioned above. There's also an option to double the amount of enemies, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. By the way, beating a champion will drop extra loot like a skill book, a potion, or a rare plus item. But the best part is that you can tweak buff and champion chances with the help of a special NPC. The downside, however, is that due to randomness of this mod, it might create a very difficult situation for very specialized builds. For example, there's a chance for the enemy to roll permanent elemental resistance, like Icy Skin, which gives them complete ice and water immunity. As you can imagine, if you have only one character and they do only hydro damage, then you're kinda screwed. So you'll have to find a workaround either through respeccing into another damage school for this fight, or by using scrolls/mercenaries. But typically, if you have more than one character, you should be fine. Despite all of that, this mod is still very fun to play with, so go get it. Next, party size evolved by Laughing Leader. If you've ever wanted to have a playthrough with all origin characters, then this mod is for you, as it increases the default party size from 4 to 6, with an option to increase it all the way up to 10 characters in the party. But as you can imagine, having more characters will make the game feel much easier, and so, if it bothers you, you might start artificially increasing difficulty via a randomizer mentioned earlier, or by using Laughing Leader's enemy upgrade overhaul. It also adds buffs to the enemies, but on top of that, it allows you to scale their level. For example, Magisters and Driftwood are level 9. With this mod, you might make their level equal or even higher than yours, which will increase their stats, HP, armor, etc. But there's a catch. This will also make them give you way more XP than usual, and so if you don't want to overlevel quickly, then grab Laughing Leader's Scale Experience by Player Level mod. Now ask yourself a question. Have you ever wanted to make a cool build around an interesting unique? Like this fully poisoned dagger, but then you realize that items like that are mostly found in mid/endgame. Well, if you sub to Dahlia's Uniques by Lady Cassandra, that won't be an issue anymore, as it adds an NPC who sells replicas of those uniques. Just keep in mind that those copies have lower levels than the originals, and so you gotta level them up through Level Up All Equipment mod by Lady Cassandra, or with the help of Sorceress Sandry's Giveback. Majority of vanilla talents are pretty much useless and underwhelming compared to good stuff like Elemental Affinity, 5-star Diner, etc. And so, Bard's Enhanced Talents mod tries to address that by improving very useless vanilla talents like Leech, Demon, Ice King, etc. Just keep in mind that some changes aren't that balanced. Now, let's talk about overhaul mods. Those things drastically change the gameplay, and because of that, you should never use more than one overhaul at a time. So don't combine mods mentioned specifically in this section of the video. The reason why you might want to play with further mentioned overhaul mods is that at the bare minimum, they're trying to address the most controversial mechanic in this game, armor system. These overhauls do it in their own unique way, and of course they have tons of other features like talent reworks, ability changes, and so on. Alright, with that aside, let's look at the first overhaul and one of my favorite mods in this game, Divinity Conflux Combat Overhaul by Xorn. It adds tons of new things. For example, almost all talents have been completely reworked so that you can have a huge build variety. For instance, one of the most useless talents, Ice King, has been changed into the King of Ice, a talent which gives you immunity to frozen and slipping, sets a chilling aura around you, and allows you to release Ice Novas. Or how about Demon talent, which has been changed into King of Fire. It grants AP recovery and movement if you're burning, which you can extinguish at any moment to make a big kaboom around you. Cool thing is that you can combine both King of Ice and Fire into a much more potent combination. On top of that, Lone Wolf is an innate talent, which can be deactivated at any point. Every character has a free Pet Pal tag, on top of the ability to crit with magic without the need to spend a talent point, and 0.5 AP worth of free movement like a mini pawn talent. Divinity Conflux also introduces a new second tier of elemental status effects. For example, if you make an enemy burn and then apply shock to them, it will combine those two statuses into Accelerant, a new tier 2 status effect. It will do fire damage for every step the character makes, similar to Rupture Tendon skill. Or you can chill a slowed character to create Congeal status and make them extremely slow. You can see its effect on the screen. So now, because of those new statuses, you can mix different elemental schools much more efficiently. Another cool feature is the improved AI. Enemies will try to cure negative statuses like CC, or they will try to reveal invisible players. Now enemies have more skills, talents, consumables, and overall better scaling. More than 2,500 NPCs were reviewed and changed accordingly. Also, HP and Constitution are not useless stats anymore. That is because with this mod, armor is not how you survive damage, as both players and NPC characters will use new defensive features to either avoid or withstand multiple crowd control effects, and so HP matters much more. Also, pre-buffing isn't a thing anymore. All precast buffs would be wiped clean right when you start the combat. On top of that, this mod adds a lot of new and reworked skills, new boss encounters, new uniques, new difficulty setting, reworked racial and origin skills like Ifan's Soul Wolf, and if the game feels too easy for you, then you can turn on 2 optional difficulty features like Talent Injector, which gives a lot of reworked talents to NPCs, and Attributes Booster to further increase their power and spice up your playthrough. So yeah, go and check Divinity Conflux out. Next overhaul is Vanilla Plus by Luxen. The core idea of this mod is to stick closer to vanilla experience, but obviously with some good changes. For example, the armor system is tweaked in a way that damage goes partially through the magic and physical armor. So if you deal 100 physical damage, then just like in vanilla, physical armor will be reduced by that number. But half of that damage will be also applied to characters' HP directly. So that makes hybrid damage builds and parties more viable, and it also increases the value of HP and Constitution. But what about chain CC? Well, let's look at this situation. You have a physical character who wants to chain CC an opponent with 2 or 3 knockdown abilities. You knock them down once, they skip their turn, just like in the base game. But if you try to do it again, they won't skip their turn this time. Instead, they will get staggered. This is a soft CC debuff, which will stack with each additional crowd control attempt. You may pause the video here for clarification. So basically, in Vanilla Plus, characters get a partial immunity to hard CC. You can't stun lock any character without armor anymore. But if you want 2 turns of CC, then you gotta have a good combination of physical and magical damage, which again encourages hybrid builds and parties, which wasn't effective in the base game at all. Another change is a rework of attributes. In vanilla, you would focus on one main attribute like finesse, strength, or intelligence, and completely ignore the other 2, because only one of them would be contributing to your damage output. But as you can see in this mod, all attributes do different things, so it's possible to mix them based on your build. And of course, Constitution is much more valuable now due to the partial armor piercing on all skills. Let's also not forget about changes in the abilities. For example, weapon ones are now extremely valuable for any weapon user. Plus, their damage is now multiplicative, unlike in the base game where it was additive. Also, the type of the weapon matters. Maces have higher base damage, axes have wider damage range, spears can pierce through armor, and so on. Another cool feature is that in this mod, the majority of talents were buffed. You may pause now to look at some of them. Other changes are reworked skills, potions, and grenades. Also, food now lasts longer and acts as a pre-buff. By the way, you can customize a lot of features of this mod through the in-game settings if you have leader lib, which we're gonna talk about later. Also, this mod is developed for both story and GM modes. Balance and RP-wise, it's very friendly for game masters. So yeah, go on and try Vanilla Plus. And the last but not least overhaul is Divinity Unleashed by Kalavinka. If you really dislike the armor system in the vanilla game, then this mod is for you. That is because now, both physical and magical armor act only as a static damage reduction. Any status like stun, knockdown, poison, blind, etc. goes right through the armor. So if, let's say, your fireball does 100 damage and you cast it on a character with 60 magic armor, then the end result would be 40 damage plus the burning status. And since the armor system is reworked, so too the other statuses like cripple, blind, etc. But keep in mind that all crowd control effects have been rebalanced, so that you won't be chain CC'd to death. For example, knockdown doesn't make you skip the turn, but it does affect your move speed, dodging, and AP. Same goes for any other hard CC, and even if some of them do cause a turn skip, you will still need to set them up. Plus, the skipping turn status gives a huge defensive buff on top of that, so that you can't easily capitalize on chain CC like in the base game. It's important to note that Divinity Unleashed automatically adapts other class mods to this system. Another good change is that base attributes are changed so that any build would benefit from non-focusing on one stat. Also, in this overhaul, abilities are no longer just flat damage increases. For example, Warfare grants you damage based on the amount of enemies near you, and it also increases your vitality, which is important due to armor system changes. Polymorph not only gives you one attribute, but it also increases your elemental resistances, and so on. Just like with other overhauls, Divinity Unleashed changes talents with its own twist. From now on, any character, including enemies, gets 3 talents for free: the Pawn, Savage Swordledge, and Opportunist. So that positioning is more important, and both physical and magic damage dealers can crit from the get-go. Of course, other talents are changed so that you have more options to choose from. But without a doubt, one of my favorite changes in this mod is the way cheese mechanics have been treated. For example, you cannot craft skin graft scrolls anymore for the infamous Adrenaline plus skin graft combo. When a character is revived via scroll, they can't do anything until their next turn. That way you won't be able to do chain resurrections. Similar thing happens when characters rejoin the combat they have already left. They also can't do anything until their next turn. Or attacking enemies from too far away when they don't start the combat will immediately heal that opponent. Also, no more pre-buffing, invisibility is detectable if enemies get too close to you, and much more. Other changes include stuff like dodging, which now affects not only weapons, but also spells. Thievery is less effective, melee weapons do more damage, surface damage is almost tripled, so you would be aware of your positioning. Surfaces and damage over time statuses completely ignore armor, and there are many other numerical and small changes. So yeah, go and check Divinity Unleashed. Next, essential mods and software. The first one is Script Extender made by Norbite. It allows modders to access more game resources, to create more mechanics, and much more. And so, the overwhelming majority of new and complex mods, which were or weren't mentioned before, require you to have this script extender. For example, here you see that initiative-based turn order mod directly says that you need this extender, otherwise the mod won't work. On top of that, it will make mods load much faster than usual, and you'll finally be able to earn the in-game achievements while playing with mods. You'll have to Google Norbite's script extender and download it from GitHub. Follow the instructions there or read this guide on Steam made by Autumnblade. Another very important thing you can get from GitHub is Laughing Leader's Divinity Mod Manager. You might ask yourself, why do I need this? Well, you see, in Divinity, the order in which you turn on the mods is very important. The higher your mod is, the earlier it will be loaded into the game, and in some cases, it's very crucial to have the correct loading order. Organizing mods in the game itself, though, is a nightmare. There are only 2 up and down buttons, and you cannot just drag the mods wherever you want. So now you can imagine how much time it will take you to deal with it if you have a lot of mods. And that is why you need Laughing Leader's Mod Manager. There, you can easily move mods around, or even save your mod order and then share it with friends. Also, if there are any updates for your mods, then this mod manager will see it, and the only thing you'll have to do is just a few clicks. Next thing to get is LeaderLib by Laughing Leader. It's needed for a decent amount of mods to work correctly. It also adds an in-game quality of life menu. For example, you can enable friendly fire, auto-identify items when you pick them up, change base carry weight, and so on. You can even skip the tutorial or Act 1 entirely if you wish so. Furthermore, if you have previously mentioned Script Extender, then you'll have even more tools to tweak your game. Stuff like always showing your HP and armor values, changing player or non-player action point settings, backstab range and numbers, and much more. And the last thing you'll need is combined icon atlases made by Laughing Leader. Some mods will have missing in-game icons, like you can see on this screenshot, and that problem will be easily fixed by this mod. And finally, let's quickly talk about how to minimize the amount of bugs and problems in modded runs. A lot of this info comes directly from the modders, so you'd better listen carefully if you want to save a lot of time and effort. First thing, read the description fully and thoroughly. A lot of mods have a very strict loading order, so you gotta follow it. Previously mentioned Mod Manager will help you with this a lot. Some mods must be turned on before you start the playthrough, so don't enable them in the middle of the campaign. Also, you'd better not overlap mods which affect the same parts of the game. For example, both Enemy Randomizer and Enemy Upgrade Overhaul give enemies random buffs, and so you should choose only one of them. You also need to understand that activating 200 quadrillion mods at the same time will result in a weird and unpredictable behavior. So be reasonable when it comes to that. If the mod says it needs the script extender and other mods, get them. If the mod isn't compatible with something, don't try to combine them. Normally, everything mentioned above is written in the description, and so reading it and following the instructions eliminates 90% of all issues and errors. If you still have problems, then scan through comments under the mod description or in the specifically designed threads. It would take you 5 to 10 minutes max to read all of them, and there's a high chance your questions have been already answered. If there is still no solution, then try to turn off mods one by one and see what causes the issue, and only then report to the modder. But saying stuff like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Developer, your mod doesn't work. Why? Question mark. That stuff isn't gonna help anyone. So be more specific and bring more details to the table. But of course, some mods haven't been updated in years, so again, read the comments real quick and see if they're still functional or not. Also, pay attention to the mods' names. Normally, there are two versions of each mod, one made for the classical edition and another one for the definitive edition of the game. If you want an older version of the mod, you might find it on Nexus Mods. And last but definitely not least, if you enjoy the mod a lot, then go on and rate it on Steam and Nexus, so that more people will be aware of it and enjoy it in the future. It's a small thing, but it matters a lot. Alright, that's it. Like, sub, recommend this video to your friends, I stream right here, read the description, and have a good day.